And as you can see, in the interest of time, we're not reading out people's biographies today, but we are pasting them in the chat box so you can see for yourself the breadth and depth of the experience and expertise we have here today. So today's event, we're going to be talking about justice for the Rohingya. And just as a refresher, quickly, you know, there are 4 different mechanisms that are formally engaged with this quest for justice. The International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court, the National Courts of Argentina, and the IIMM, the investigative mechanism for Myanmar. So what we will be looking at today is what justice means for the Rohingya. How do we get there? And what role does everybody have to play? So we're going to kick off today's event with some words from our co-sponsor, the Republic of the Gambia. And I introduce Mr. Hussein Thomasi, Solicitor General and Legal Secretary of the Republic of the Gambia, to make those remarks. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Alison. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this event is absolutely important as we talk about the topic, justice for the Rohingya. It is a topic that we will have to talk about for a long time to come, and one that we have to draw the attention of the world to at all times. Let me first express my thanks and appreciation to the government of Bangladesh for sponsoring this very important event together with the Gambia, as well as to No Peace Without Justice. My gratitude also goes to all the panel members, Ambassador Haque, Madam Yasmin Ullah, Mr. Khin, and all for agreeing to be on this panel. I take this opportunity to recognize and acknowledge the magnanimous humanitarian effort of the government of Bangladesh in its open door policy in receiving and providing shelter for the Rohingya refugees who are fleeing from injustice. The massive influx of refugees is not without its heavy toll on Bangladesh and its population, who have to endure severe socioeconomic, environmental, and security challenges. It is therefore important that the world pays attention to this and come to the aid of Bangladesh in this humanitarian gesture. Atrocities and other horrific forms of rights violations were heightened during the Second World War, and this compelled the world to usher in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. The Declaration has served as an inspiring source for virtually all human rights instruments we know today. The Declaration proclaims that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, and that they are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. 43 years after the entry into force of the Genocide Convention, the world witnessed the genocide of Rwanda with over 1 million people killed in 100 days, and the genocide in Bosnia with over 8,000 men and boys killed simply for belonging to another ethnic group or religion. 25 years after these brutal acts, we are today witnessing the genocide of the Rohingya in Myanmar. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Gambia's primary motivation in bringing this case before the International Court of Justice is to let the world know that it cannot be indifferent to the sufferings of the Rohingya. 2 decades of brutal dictatorship in our own territory, the Gambia, has taught us that we must use our voice to condemn oppression and stand for justice and human rights whenever and wherever they occur, especially where there are violations of human rights and abuses. What is happening to the Rohingya in Myanmar today is the genocide of the Rohingya. The Rohingya have suffered mass killings, mass rape, killing and burning of children in their homes and places of worship, destruction of their homes and properties, all in an attempt to exterminate them simply for being born to a different race and a different religion. On 11 November 2019, the Gambia filed a case against Myanmar at the International Court of Justice, accusing Myanmar of genocide against its Rohingya Muslim minority. In the case of the Gambia versus Myanmar, application of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Both Myanmar and the Gambia are signatories to the 1948 Genocide Convention, which compels all members to prevent and punish the crime of genocide. The case was brought with the support of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, which had tasked the Gambia to look into how Myanmar can be brought to justice following the Gambia's initiative to seek justice for the Rohingya. As part of the measures sought in filing the case, the Gambia requested the ICJ to grant provisional measures to ensure that Myanmar puts an immediate stop to its atrocities against the Rohingya. As you are all aware, on the 23rd of January 2020, a unanimous decision by the International Court of Justice in The Hague ordering provisional measures to prevent further acts of genocide from occurring in Myanmar was unanimously made by the court. The court's decision was historic and was celebrated by human rights defenders all over the world. The court unanimous order approves the reality that the Rohingya who remain in Myanmar are at risk of further genocidal acts and that they need the urgent protection of the court during the pendency of the case against Myanmar. The court also unanimously ordered Myanmar and all its entities under its control to take all measures within its power to prevent the commission of all acts of genocide against the Rohingya, including killings, causing serious bodily or mental harm, infliction of conditions of life calculated to bring about physical destruction, and measures to prevent births. The court also ordered Myanmar to ensure the preservation of all evidence related to the allegations of the crime of genocide. Myanmar was ordered also to report to the court after 4 months, and then every 6 months thereafter on its compliance with the court's order. Myanmar has so far filed 3 reports, in fact now 4, which is now under consideration, with regards to its compliance with the ICJ's order on provisional measures. Notwithstanding the change of government in Myanmar, we know that there is still an attempt by the military junta to comply with the court's orders. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is important to know that there is now a mechanism to serve as a check on Myanmar before the completion of the case. The case has now been brought under the purview of international law, and the court's notification of its order of provisional measures to the United Nations Security Council, pursuant to Article 41(2) of the court statute, was also done. It is now up to the Security Council to fulfill its role to ensure that Myanmar complies with the court's order. The Gambia's action has also ensured that the case of the Rohingya is no longer relegated to non-binding resolutions and meetings that have no substantial impact on the plight of the Rohingya. I wish to bring to the attention of this gathering that since the filing of the case, Canada and the Netherlands have expressed interest and have now partnered and joined in the case to ensure justice for the Rohingya. Canada and all indications are that the United Kingdom will also join very soon. On 23rd January 2020, the ICJ also made an order fixing the time limits for the filing of the memorial, which is the main case by the Gambia, and a counter memorial by Myanmar. The order provides that the Gambia's memorial shall be filed within 6 months, which is by 23rd July 2020. A request was made by our lawyers for the time to be extended for a further period of 3 months owing to the global COVID-19 pandemic, which has virtually brought the world to a standstill. This effectively meant that the Gambia had until 23rd October to file its memorial, which was actually done on that very day, detailing the Gambia's full case against Myanmar. The preparation of the memorial, I must say, was very intense and involved a lot of voluminous work, from analysis of NGO reports, expert reports, collection of satellite data, video recordings, and images. It is worth mentioning that Myanmar filed a preliminary objection to the case on the 20th January 2021, based on 4 points. Just to recap, that those 4 points on which they are basing their preliminary objection were all raised during the hearing on application of provisional measures, and Myanmar's arguments on all those 4 points were rejected by the court. Whilst they are at liberty to bring or raise preliminary objections, it only amounts to delaying the case and ultimately for them to file a counter memorial to respond to the full case against them on the merits. The Gambia has, however, filed its opposition to these objections, and a hearing is expected in February 2022. The Gambia is being represented by the Washington-based law firm of Foley Haque, which has since inception been handling this case. Your Excellencies, in conclusion, I wish to reiterate that as a condition precedent for the Rohingya to return to Myanmar, the Constitution of Myanmar must acknowledge and recognize the Rohingya as an ethnic group as a starting point. Their exclusion from the approved 135 list of ethnic groups is still ongoing. It is important that they are given and recognized in a dignified manner. And it's important that their citizenship is recognized and affirmed. I wish you all well in this effort, and I thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. And before turning to the panel, I would like just to pay tribute to the Gambia for launching this historic case, not least because it's the first time a case has been brought under the Genocide Convention by a state not directly affected by the genocide in question. And I would also like to acknowledge the efforts of the Gambia and your legal team to involve the Rohingya people in the case itself. So thank you very much for that, sir. So for the panel, Yasmin, I'm going to start with you, and it's always a pleasure to see you. Yasmin is a Rohingya social justice activist who does amazing work in focusing attention on what's happening in Myanmar. Now, we had the honor to discuss sexual and gender-based crimes with you during the last Assembly of States parties, and I'd like to hear how your views are on that now, but also more broadly, and speaking specifically on the ICC. It's now been 2 years since the investigation opened. So I wanted to ask you, how is it going? Is there any good news? And is there anything you'd like to share on how you see the ICC helping victims to achieve justice? Yasmin, all yours.
Thank you very much for that very kind introduction. It's always such an honor to be here, sharing the panel with amazing, wonderful people who are dedicated to the cause and have the ability to speak my mind. Now, I have simmered on a lot of this for a while, as have a lot of people. I think that when it comes to survivors, they are still continuously not front and center enough. And of course, when we talk about, holding perpetrators accountable, our ideas always jump to, or, is heavily influenced by the retributive line of thinking or line of accountability, which of course is necessary, a really, really important step of deterrence at the very least, right? In order for, future crimes to not be committed. But do I think that the current system still not give enough to to deter, future perpetrators. Definitely, because we all understand how restrictive it is in the current judicial, at least the international judicial mechanism. And of course, there are a lot of different issues like the ICJ not having enforcement, or the ICC, not being able to hold accountable an entire platoon of soldiers who might have caused, or who are implicated in the crimes of genocide itself. But through research and history, we also know that rehabilitation of survivors is as important, if not more, and dare I say, probably the most important focus that is often ignored. And we know far too well the limitation of the accountability and the justice mechanism that we're dealing with. However, there are probably other creative ways that we can certainly push the focus or push forward in order, or with the survivors in mind. And they need to be not just front and center as tokens, but they need to be consulted. They need to be part of it. Because how do we rehabilitate a large group of people? And perhaps Rohingya are not large enough, but large enough for us to all just scramble, not knowing what to do in this circumstance. Without actually consulting them, we would not know what they would need, first of all, in order to be able to get out of this survival mode, and then what they would need in order for them to thrive. And I think that, globally, we have not done that. State officials have not done that enough, unfortunately. And I think there is a lot of missed opportunity in order to actually not only hold perpetrators accountable, but then also send a message that, as much as it's important to deter the future crimes, we're also very, very focused on helping the people who have been victimized, and that, they are going to be, first of all, protected, and then, they're going to be rehabilitated back to their full potential, and hopefully they would be able to then contribute to the global society. In terms of the current ICC process or the procedure, there obviously it's not happening fast enough, unfortunately. But the most current news that I've heard from colleagues is that there is an attempt to, collect further evidence. And I think that is a really, really important part, although having it happen 2 years ago, and, the court procedure taking this long, obviously memories, and, we're dealing with something that is very, very abstract, and also something that is very fleeting, especially in a trauma-informed, type of environment where people are constantly, re-traumatized within, restrictive and within a dire circumstance. No one needs to live, no one should live in a refugee camps. But thankfully to the Bangladeshi government that we're given a safe haven. But the current condition in the camp still not conducive to people being rehabilitated back to health or rehabilitated back to their old self. And so that constant reminder that they're still not home, they're still not able to save some of their family stuck back home, or, so many other factors that comes with, being displaced, can play a huge role in, I think, in prohibiting or preventing us to actually have a good court case. I'm not saying that we don't, but in terms of, looking at it through the victim's lens, it's really important to note that as the year goes by, the hope also dwindles. And the longer we keep people living without hope. And that's what, the most often of what I heard while I was visiting the camp was that, why are we here? What's the help that's out there for us? Are we here just to be, kept in the refugee camps? What's the hope? What's the future for us? What's the next step? And as much as we want to applaud the world for paying attention finally, we also need to understand that none of us would want to be in their condition, in their situation. And so that goes back to show, how important it is to actually rehabilitate, not just after the perpetrators have been found guilty or, after the court case is won, but actually throughout the entire process and actually listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yasmin. And, speaking of the impact of the court cases and the engagement of victims throughout, I'd like to turn now to Khin. Great to see you again, as always, President of the Burmese Rohingya Organization. And let me actually just congratulate you on the recent opening of the universal jurisdiction cases in Argentina. I know how hard you worked to get the cases to this point. And of course, there's still a lot to go before we see the end of that process. So I wanted to ask you, we've seen in other universal jurisdiction cases, especially those, for example, for Syria, that it's been a bit of a struggle for those cases to have an impact for the victims and for them to follow what's happening. So I wanted to ask you, what's next for the cases in Argentina, and how is that hurdle, the impact on victims, being addressed in that situation? You have the floor.
Thank you, Alison. Good to see you again after a long time, and thank you for organizing this event. I would like to express many thanks to Ambassador Hussein, Thomasi, Ambassador Shahidul, and Brother Shahidul Haque, and for all your support, Bangladesh, Gambia, for your support and solidarity for the justice for the Rohingya. And of course, we've been waiting for already since 2019, December, it's about 2 years now. And ICJ issues are still, Burmese military is not actually, they are not obeying the provisional measures. And instead, Rohingya genocide is ongoing in Burma. After the coup situation getting worse, I worry may get worse. And of course, I come back to the point you mentioned about on universal jurisdiction case. This is I should say, we've been struggling for 2 years to open in investigation, and we were open to do that last few days ago. For that, universal jurisdiction case is compared with other cases, it moves fast, to be honest. As far as I think, I am not a lawyer. I don't have much knowledge about other Syria and other cases. As far as what I understand here is a few points. One thing is, for this case, we have fully supported from IIMM. IIMM International Investigative Mechanism already sent a letter to the court, and we are closely working with them for collecting the evidence from them and submitting them. That is first thing. And if you see our case in universal jurisdiction cases, the crimes committed by Burmese military in Rakhine state. I mean, like ICC case, and ICC is a kind of deportation after these victims been deported to the Bangladesh. That's how ICC case is. So this, the point here is Tulatuli, Maung village. In Tulatuli, in one day, about 400 people, some people are saying 500 over, so killed in one day in August, end of August and first week of September. And Maung village hundreds of people were slaughtered in one house. There are many evidence. We have many victims giving us those things. And so IIMM have well already organized to already the evidence. I think that we'll move fast on that point. And as soon as we can get 6 Rohingya women to bring to Buenos Aires to give testimony, and I think something we can move forward. For the impact, of course, one impact sure I can say here is Burmese military, they really care about these justice cases, even though they showing that they don't care, but they really care on some points, like first thing that when we go to when we move forward, we will have a kind of if they don't come to the court for the summon, when the court judges send, we're gonna do the arrest warrant. So that's arrest warrant. We're gonna walk through Interpol, and for that, Malaysia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, other countries, the military, they will not have even a country to move. To be honest, it's gonna be very difficult. Of course, there is something with the state immunity or things like that, but still that impact can be very difficult for the military, not only me online, I mean other militaries. So we have many lists anyway. So on that court, I believe that one thing as a Rohingya impact, we have to wait and see, but hopefully there are not only one case, one Argentina Universal Jurisdiction case, ICC case, International Court of Justice, with thanks to Gambia, champion on that, Bangladesh supporting ICC case. We really appreciate it. Many thanks to Bangladesh for these things. And, one thing we have to remember that when we all went to the camp, genocide survivors, they are priority. We want justice. That justice, we have to work hard, our best to bring those responsible, those perpetrators, So now one thing is we can see that when we are moving justice cases, this is a kind of international community already, the failure of impunity to take action when Rohingya were facing that, international community failure to stop that because military been enjoying impunity. There is no such thing we have seen so far when Rohingya crisis happened. Today, we can see the brutality is military on the street of other parts of Burma, how they hitting with a military truck, just who are protesting last few days ago. So we have seen many worsening situation, brutality of these military terrorists. So this is what I believe that impact will be more stronger because international community is getting along, even though unfortunately they are not doing enough to stop these military brutalities. So same time, one thing when we talk about justice here, we are targeting our brothers and sisters who are in the camps, who mentioned with the tears their stories, what we can't sleep. For me, I couldn't sleep for 4 weeks, when I was in Bangladesh, I heard those stories. So they are fulfilled, their willingness to want justice. That is how we have to move forward. Secondly, international community, when we can see ICJ case, International Court of Justice, the Gambia case, and, we have seen only Netherlands and Canada is only joining with them. How about other countries? One thing I want to say that here is clearly 5, 6 Rohingya women, genocide survivors from the camp, they give testimony. They have courage to say what's happened to them from Bangladesh, what military did to them. So international community, they need much more courage to stand up. If our sisters, if from the Bangladesh camp where they have risks, they stood up and they are courage, they have shown to fight for the justice. How about international community in other parts of the world? I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Khin. And actually that question about the international community is what I would now like to ask Ambassador Haque about. You have a lot of experience, Ambassador Haque, around negotiations around the Rohingya crisis. So I wanted to ask you, can you put this in the broader geopolitical context for us? And I wanted to ask how confident you are after nearly 4.5 years about how things are proceeding, and specifically, is justice for the Rohingya a hostage to global geopolitics? You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Difficult question, but nevertheless, I will try and give my understanding. Thank you, Yasmin, Khin, Riaz, and Ambassador Hussein, and for your statements. Let me try and address the last part of your question first. I'm hugely optimistic that eventually the Rohingya people will get their justice. I'm very, very confident, and that is why Bangladesh has, to some extent, gone out of the way to engage itself as a state, both with the ICC, ICJ, and with the IIMM. It wasn't easy, but that's the decision taken by the government of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. So I want to put that into it. If we were not confident, we wouldn't have possibly taken this path, because there was quite a bit of a hurdle, which I am not in a position to disclose right now. But what I'll do, I'll try and bring in the geopolitics, then you'll possibly will understand better. I will use some slides, because geopolitics is often confusing thing, that what we are talking about. So I thought, I thought over it and had a discussion with Riaz, and he suggested that I should use some bit of a slide. It shouldn't be too many. I see. Can you see?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, let's see whether I can bring that back. I think I did something terrible, and it has disappeared in the midst of my geopolitical heat.
We can see it, sir.
You can see. I cannot see. So that's definitely. So if I cannot see, I don't know which slide is on. Why is this? Let me do the stop sharing and then bring it back. No, it's not coming. It's not coming. Can the organizer show it from there? Would that be too inconvenient? Because I cannot see it without.
I think you continue, sir.
No, but I have to see the slides. If I don't see the slide, I don't know which one is on.
So we can try to arrange that, perhaps, if you want to continue in the meanwhile, because we are running a bit short of time already.
So what I'm it would have been really nice if they could have shown it. I think I had sent it ahead. So
I can share it from my screen if you want. You can tell me when you want to move.
Yep, I have stopped it.
I will do it in a second.
Good.
Right. Okay.
Second slide. Good. If you see this is actually, in order to understand the geopolitics of Southeast and East and South Asia, possibly the starting point could be the Second World War, when Burma was a major sector or theater of war. And at that time, the Japanese were forcing, they were in coordination with or in alliance with the Burmese military, the then Burmese military, they wanted to push and get a warm water port in Cox's Bazar, where the Rohingyas are currently staying. But the British were smart enough. In fact, they deployed one of the largest military in that region and did not give this to advantage to the Japanese, and that left a pretty strong scar on the psyche of Burmese people. Burmese thought that Rohingyas were with the British, so they did not want Burma to be theirs. So that's the root of it, at which Maung Lai has very clearly said that 1942 was a mistake. So I'm going to clean it up. So that's a geopolitical part. Second, if you keep on clicking, it will come. Now, very interesting. Another click, please. This is a tri-junction between India, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. So there is a common border between the two countries, which often we do not know or do not take cognizance of it. So that creates a different kind of a game and a geopolitics. And China is not too far away. In fact, there's a common border between China and Myanmar and India. So that area has always been volatile, not much geopolitical, but in terms of smuggling, small arms, all kinds of illegal activities, because it's a very difficult terrain and there's not much of a control by either of the governments. And on that, people have written, especially Bartle Linter has written a very good book giving quite a bit of a detail on the whole thing. So there's the other part where things are unstable, and possibly time has come when Myanmar and some of the other parties wants this Rohingya to be out of that place, because it's geopolitically very important, and geoeconomically there's a lot of things under the earth of northern Rakhine. So that's, please, next. Yeah, next. Now, some people may not know that there has been infringement and provocation by the Myanmar military over Bangladesh. This is the Saint Martin. In fact, at one stage in 2018, Myanmar in their map suggested that Saint Martin belongs to them. Saint Martin has never been a part of Myanmar, not even 100 years back. So and we took it to the Security Council actually, and then they were told to correct their map, which they said that they didn't know somebody else has corrected it. State cannot behave like hooligans. Next. Yeah. So next, please. Now this is the picture. Anybody can go and verify in 2017 and 18. So this, we think, was a huge provocation on Bangladesh, and behind the provocation, they were not alone. There were other forces in the vicinity, because they wanted to turn the whole Rohingya crisis into a military war between Bangladesh and Myanmar, which they were unsuccessful. So just to give you a deeper geopolitics in terms of the two countries. Please, next. I'm coming to an end. This is the last slide. Now, sometimes we do not see the bigger canvas. The bigger canvas is there's a two important bay in the map. One is the Bay of Bengal. On the tip of that is the Cox's Bazar, Myanmar, Bangladesh. And if you go a little up, it's China. If you take the left one, which is another bay, which is called Arabian Bay, where you will see up the Pakistan is the Afghanistan. These two bay is somehow that geopolitically linked, and these are the two volatile regions currently. And most of the things that's happening, if you leave behind South China Sea, it's happening here. What is the reason? Because the gravity is shifting, and there are actors who want warm water bay. One warm water bay is Bay of Bengal. The other one is the Arabian Sea through Pakistan. So you can see the regional big powers are playing, and in this, unfortunately, the Rohingyas and Bangladesh are caught in between. So this is the geopolitics, and often we have seen during our negotiations with the big countries of the region, China, India, for that matter, other ASEAN countries, which will come later, they were more inclined on their interests rather than on humanity or genocide. There was a lot of pressure on Bangladesh not to go to the ICG and ICC through the OIC process, because the decision was taken in Dhaka during the foreign ministers meeting, and Gambia was very generous, kind, bold to take on the flag. So that's the geopolitics. I'll stop here. Thank you very much, and sorry for this this mess.
Not at all, sir. Thank you very much. And you're right. I mean, the geopolitics can be very confusing, particularly for those of us that don't have the geography in our head. So thank you very much. I think that was extremely useful. You know, I have so many questions that I want to ask all of you, but we have only about 18 minutes left. So while we're seeing if any of our attendees today would like to ask any questions in the Q&A box, I would like to ask each of you actually very briefly in a nutshell, let's say, if you can. How do you view the National Unity Government stand on justice and accountability? So leaping forward to where we are now with that. And I would like to start, if you're there, I'd like to start with Khin, but if you're not, we can start with, yes, you're there. Great. Please go ahead, in a nutshell, if you could.
You mean about National Unity Government?
Yes, and their stand on justice and accountability.
Yeah, it's a good question. National Unity Government, we have seen that after the coup that led by some of the former National League for Democracy members, and we have seen some people from civil disobedience movement and some from ethnic minorities. We have seen that their commitment on ICC, you know, Roma statutes, for their commitment to signing up, and these are very progressive, one step forward. And we have not seen one thing is, unfortunately, when we talk about Rohingya issue, you know, when we talk justice, we talk also whole country, you know, not only for the Rohingya. One thing I want to point out here. So National Unity Government working for inclusive future federal union of Burma. So if they call for inclusive justice and everything, they should focus on also the reality, what's happened to the Rohingya. They did not recognize what Rohingyas, UN fact-finding mission already reported what's happened to the Rohingya is genocide. I believe they really have to recognize what's happened to the Rohingya. We haven't seen that. So if you cannot recognize the reality in the past, how can we move forward in future? That is a big question here. And regarding on their policy paper, that is positive forward. They mentioned Rohingya issue, you know, they mentioned about the name of the Rohingya, where Burma, many people, you know, long before they call us illegal Bengalis, Kowi Bengali in Burmese. So now, I already mentioned that is very good, but there is no such clear point about how Rohingya group their recognition and citizenship issue. Because when you talk about Burma, you know, there is about ethnic groups issue and federal union, you should have your political representation. So we are a group, we have culture, we have our civilization, our own culture, our own civilization, we have our land. So we want to represent our people, we should have our political representation. So that NUG should clear, and also citizenship issue, they say after constitution or charter, they will consider it. One thing here, they have to make clear citizenship issue is 1982 citizenship law. That is the military dictatorship. They designed to get rid of Rohingya people. And that is the military, they've taken away our ethnic rights. So if they denounce the military, they have to denounce everything what military done, not only about what's happening in Rangoon, Mandalay, and other parts of Burma. They have to include what's happened to the Rohingya people, what's happened to Karen people, what's happened to Khin people. Those all need to be pointed out. So I think some point they are justice cases, some positive point from ICC, but unfortunately they did not. They have to do much more, I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I also appreciate your mentioning of the solidarity between different ethnic groups, because I have seen that, and it's very heartwarming to see that. Yasmin, same question to you. What's your take on this?
I'm anchoring off of a lot of what Khin has already said. There's definitely a parallel that could be drawn from the African Union. And I think, Your Excellency, you'd probably be better positioned to talk about this, but I think because, in the global South, the idea of individualism is not, completely just one part of, what the society is about. In Myanmar, very specifically, because we're made up of so many ethnic groups and so many minoritized groups, and this is a very, very clear attempt from, erasure through, genocide. All of this was an attempt to actually make sure that the society are disbanded in order for them to basically, complete the task or accomplish dispossession for accumulation, or further harm the community so that they cannot take up an arm and fight back. And fight back in this case is against the authoritarian regime. So the idea of ethnic groups having political power is extremely dire within Myanmar. Why? Because armed organizations ethnic armed organization, very specifically within Myanmar, has suffered very, very long war because they are inherently trying to protect their own people, while the military regime has been trying to take away their land, their rights, and their sense of community, which is the most important part about the ethnic and minority rights. And this whole situation where the National Unity Government has not really addressed first the genocide of Rohingya and minced around using the term entirely, as well as actually appointing a person who've been a very, very important genocide denier to a ministry role. That still kind of left a lot of questions for Rohingya. If they were actually truly sincere about their attempt to mend, the relationship between the state and one of the ethnic groups, are they really going to put people who have, previously denied that a genocide ever occurred in a position of power and in the, humanitarian efforts ministry at that? It just does not make sense. And I think the hypocrisy there really shows us that even within, the National Unity Government, there really isn't a one type of, unity or a one version of what federalism could look like in Myanmar. And I guess, it's part of democracy, but it needs to be critiqued further. And I think National Unity Government needs to be held accountable far more than, how it's done right now by the citizens. However, people in Myanmar are going through really, really difficult times. So it's not to say that it's their responsibility and they're failing in any way, shape, or form, but it's the state's it's the government, it's the national unity governments to actually be critical of themselves. And I think we haven't seen enough of that. And especially within the Rohingya case, there's still racism against Rohingya continuously happening. And I think at a very, very government or like state official level, that racism continuously manifests in all of the policies and the statements that are made. So I'm being cautious.
Thank you very much, Yasmin. Before I ask you the same question, actually, Ambassador, we have a really important and interesting question that's come in from Lisa Heflin, the Canadian ambassador, that I would like to ask. So she's asking, what has the effect been of the coup in Burma? And certainly on the ICJ case, it's been hugely complicating in going forward. But she is asking how it has affected the conditions in Cox's Bazar and in the camps. So I don't know who would like to take that question. Maybe Yasmin?
Oh, no, Yasmin, please go ahead.
I'm happy for you to go first, sir.
No, thank you very much. I think it's a very pertinent question that the changeover, I call it changeover, because it's the same government, as Yasmin has rightly pointed out, is the same party. Now the B team has taken over, or A team has taken over, whichever you look at it. So in that way, there hasn't been much changes or impact in the camps. But something else has happened in the camp, which is pretty alarming, and I want to draw everybody's attention to that. For the last 1 year, right after the coup, we see a sort of evidences suggest that there are groups, gangs, which became very active in the camp. In fact, destroying the law and order situation in the camp, especially at night. And most of them actually were coming down from the hills. I've been in the camp on a regular basis, looking at the coexistence between the Bangladeshis and the Rohingyas. So that is the reason I came to know. So the whole ARSA's influence in the camp has gone. Now there is a assumption based on some evidences. It's not only by the government of Bangladesh, but others are so saying that now the Myanmar military is using ARSA to create a situation of instability in the camp. So that's something international community need to look at. Now, let me also congratulate Thun King and others for your very good statement on the 7th of December this year by 22 organizations, where Rohingya community has denounced the ARSA. I think it should have come much earlier, but at least it has come. And I wish Muhibullah was still around to see this coming. So this unity touches our heart. And this is something I think will have a long-term impact on the psyche of the people of Rohingya. So that's something we need to keep in mind. Other than that, I think the Rohingya population that I talked even last month, they say it is the same, whether it is a civilian government or a military government, for them it is same. The military did not alone committed genocide. It was Aung San Suu Kyi, her government, and the military together, because I have definite information. The meeting which decided that there will be a crackdown on the Rohingya has been chaired by her. The order came from her actually, and there are documentary evidence. So for them it is same. They don't have trust any part of the Myanmar government, whether military or non-military. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I note that we're almost run out of time. Ambassador Riaz, I think we're going to have to organize a day-long conference to discuss these issues. There's so much to say and so much to unpack. We're going to have to close soon. So I just want to note there was a question that may be food for thought. We can think about it, about asking about the possibilities of prosecuting international crimes in the Bangladeshi criminal courts using the principles of universal jurisdiction, given the proximity of Bangladesh to the events. I'm not going to ask anybody to answer that now, but it's certainly food for thought. I would like to close by giving each of you 1 or 2 sentences to say, what can we do to support the Rohingya in your quest for justice? And bear in mind that you have ICC states parties, civil society supportive of the ICC and the fight against impunity watching. So 1 or 2 sentences, what can we do? And I'll start with you, Ambassador Haque.
My urgent, it has always been, and I'm a regular visitor for the last 25 years to the camp in various capacities. I would only request that time has come and gone. The Rohingya should be united. They should have a voice, and they should bring everybody, both the diaspora and the people in the camp together. I think this is the time they should be together. Otherwise, ARSA will take them over. The camps will belong to ARSA, not to Rohingya. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Khin, what can we do?
I think for the justice, Rohingyas are struggling together for justice. I think like Bangladesh and Netherlands and Gambia, I want to request other countries to open more UJ case and support ICJ case. That is very important.
Okay, and the final word for today's panel, Yasmin, what can we do?
I'm going to go back to my first initial answer, which was rehabilitation. And as Ambassador Haque was talking about the insurgent group ARSA, this wasn't born out of nowhere. It's actually very much sociologically researched. And even though we're investigating the ties between ARSA and other groups and the military regime, we cannot dismiss the background of being in poverty and being young men. These 2 factors are actually the factors that have caused or the factors that correlates to crime being committed often in other society. So looking at that from that perspective, I think it's important to actually prioritize rehabilitation, and what that looks like, consultation with the community.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for the concise and very clear pointers towards what we can do to support this quest for justice. We're at the end now. I don't know if our co-sponsors wish to say any final words. No, Mr. Thomasi?
Well, thank you. Just to say that the United Nations Security Council should live up to its responsibility, because Myanmar is not complying with the court's report. It is filing the reports, but it's not actually implementing the court's reports. Policies have not changed, and UN experts and the international community have not been allowed access into Myanmar to really examine the situation. So it's important that the UN Security Council is more forceful in its action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So allow me to thank once again the delegations of Bangladesh and the Gambia to the ICC, to thank our speakers for your very interesting and very thoughtful input. It's always a pleasure to hear your thoughts on these things. Thank everyone for participating, and I will stop the session here so that also our attendees can get back to the important business of the Assembly of States Parties. Thank you, everybody, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good to see you, Brother Shahidul.
Thank
Brother
you.
Hussein Thomasi.
Thank you.
Brother, yes, we'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
See you soon, Yasmin.